everyone. Welcome to Chaos and Order Art by Susan Holt. That is me. Today is April 22nd, 2026, and I'm actually going live on YouTube today instead of over on my Facebook channel. I wanted to see how all of this works, so I have my computer in front of me, and I am just testing it all out. So let me see if I can see myself. Oh, yep. I can see the video is live. I am live, but I don't actually see the video. I can't watch the video myself. So I will deal with the tech later. For those of you who are watching here on YouTube, thank you so much for joining me live. Give me all the feedback you can. Thumbs up, like and subscribe, of course, and comments and questions down in the comment section, and I will get back to you as soon as I see them float by or after the live is over and done with and I go back and rewatch it. So I am getting ready for an art fair, and I have been making some necklaces to go with a bunch of the pendants that I've made in the past. This is one of my ceramic pendants. Here's the back. My name and date is inscribed there. I wire wrapped this pendant. It is porcelain, which is a ceramic, and I did a very small gauge of wire on this wrap, but I assure you the pendant is very sturdily in there. So today I think I'm gonna put the necklace on it for you. I know that this isn't kind of the traditional art stuff that some of you are here for, but jewelry making and pendant creation is an art in and of itself, and putting the accoutrements on that pendant is definitely an art, wire wrapping especially, and then putting together the beads that make this pendant really stand out. Some people say sing, but to me sing is an auditory thing. So is pop. So if you use those words, go for it. But I'm gonna use words like it's gonna make the piece stand out. It's going to match this pendant perfectly. So I am going to turn the camera down to my work table. Let me get this positioned right so you can see what I'm doing. That's kind of important. Double check and make sure that's in the kind of in the middle of the frame. I think that'll do. So here are my beads that I've chosen. I have a stack of beads in my awesome little bins over on a shelf that is out of sight from the camera. So and this, if you like my little containers here, they're nice. They've got a nice wide opening and they're kind of shallow. These actually a friend gave to me, and they're from a type of food that she feeds her puppy dog, who is an awesome little chap. He's pretty fantastic. He's a little terrier. And for those of you who know me, you know I'm a sucker for the little terriers. So she saves his food bowls, and if I need some for my jewelry supplies or some of my art stuff, I just call her or text her and go, hey, can you bring me some more of those bowls? And she does, because she's awesome. So while I'm getting set up, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. These are the findings I'm going to be using for the last step of actually attaching to the beaded necklace. Where did I put my wire? I tidied things up the other day. So I might have put my wire away. I think I did. I did. Oh no, I used that wire. Oh, so I have to choose some new wire. Use the same wire. No, that is skinny wire. I want this wire. Skinnier wire. I want this rounder wire. Heftier wire for what I'm doing. Because these beads and this pendant put together do make for a little heavier bit of a necklace. That's why I have 4 of these crimp beads out. So at the end I can make sure I have 2 crimp beads on, which will hold things in place a little sturdier. So I have a tape measure down here. It's tape with the numbers on it. 12, 21. Okay. So that way I don't have to get out my measuring tape every time I want to do something. It's already right here on my desk, which is fantastic. I use it for everything. Okay, so here is my piece of wire, and then I have these lovely things. These are little springs with a couple of them bent out on the ends, which is great. You can buy these at pretty much any craft store, and this will go on the end of the wire, so I don't have to have a third hand when I bead all of my stuff. I can just use this, set it to the side with my other stuff I'm going to use later. And it saves me from having to potentially, well, and with my arthritis, sometimes I tend to drop whatever the thing is I'm holding in my hands if my hands are feeling a little weak at the moment. So it gives me a nice counter point to my clumsiness. Makes everything nice and sturdy so I can bead things on the wire, which I will show you here in a minute. I'm just putting my jump rings on my lobster claw clasp, my findings. And I do hold this up to my light and look at it through one eye just to make sure that I get this ring completely closed, because the wire can sometimes slip through if you leave a little crack in your opening for the jump rings. And this isn't really a tutorial, I'm just talking you through my process, because I do not have the best camera work to give you a tutorial. Check. Okay, everything looks good on that. And my crimp beads. Crimp beads are different than regular beads because you can, oops, hold on, get rid of that phone call, because you can actually use your crimping tool to crimp them around your wire. So once we've got all that in place, and I have all of my silver findings that I'm going to use kind of off to the side and around where you can see. So these are the pieces that I have chosen to use This is actually little pieces of marble beads, and they're so pretty. And I've kind of paired them up into which pieces go together the best. And these, I don't remember what these are. I have the label for them somewhere, and I will find it eventually. I have beads from, well, those are the smaller ones. We'll put those up there. I have beads from many, many, many years ago. I have beads that I purchased. I have beads that I have inherited. So I have a wide variety and selection of beads that I can use for these projects. I don't know if I'm going to use these today, so we'll put those over there. And I matched the orangey reds with the reds in the pendant, and I found some nice little black crystals in my collection that will go nicely with that black. So this is how I check and see if I have the beads that are the right colors. I set them on the pendant when I'm pulling them out of the bead trays, because if they go with the reds in the pendant or the colors in the pendant, when they're right next to each other, I know they're a really, really good match. And that means I will have a beautiful piece of jewelry that matches the pendant perfectly. And with the wire wrapped pendants, because they're large enough, I also will put them directly on my board, just like that, when I'm putting out the beads to go around them, to surround them, so that I know for sure the beads in the pendant kind of still match each other as I get them laid out on my workstation, on my board. And I work on my spacing throughout when I'm working on everything. And this is a substantial sized pendant. It is top to bottom 3.5 inches. So I'm working with beads that are kind of larger-ish, because I don't want to use teeny tiny little beads for a pendant like this. I want to use beads that are bigger so that the pendant or the beads don't look disproportionate to one another. I'm just going to play around here with where I think I want these to go. And I really like making sure that not only the sizes of the beads kind of undulate in and out of the design, but also the colors. So if I were to put these orangey red beads next to this orangey red stone, because they're not exactly the same orangey red, it would clash. So I want to make sure I have enough beads for the design and for the necklace that I'm making, and B, the right color of beads, and C, I want this pendant to have some dynamic movement. Not the pendant, the necklace to have dynamic movement. The pendant is what it is. It is the centerpiece. So to make someone's eye focus on the pendant and then be able to kind of wrap around the face and the neck and be entertained, if you will, by the necklace, it needs to have its own flow and its own movement. So that is what I'm going for, flow and movement. So, I have a rather big opening here that I did crimp down just now. However, a lot of my beads that I work with are kind of on the smaller side. So I want to make sure when I put the necklace on that the beads I have don't go directly through the bail, because I don't want the bail kind of slipping and then making the design off kilter. That's not a good look. It's not a professional look. So, and now I just play around with the things I have. I have beads from almost 20 years ago. And I have beads that are that have been given to me by friends, and I have some beads that I have purchased recently. Not too many of them, but a few. So, and for those of you who don't know the numbers around here, this is 0 is the center of where your necklace is, and then it's 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, etc., all the way up to 17 inches on the back. And when you're calculating how long you want your necklace to be, so this is the center point. So when it says 1, that's actually a 2-inch spread. When it says 2, it's a 4-inch spread, because you have 1 inch on this side, 2 inches on this side, or you have 1 inch on this side, 2 inches on that side. And since you're using both sides of the board, it's actually double the length that you think it's going to be. Now I have to find beads that are going to go with this. I've been doing some designs where I have beads that are silver beads. They're not silver, they're silver findings, that I use to mirror the shape of the pendant. I think that looks nice. And sometimes the beads themselves, the findings, have really large openings. This one has a smaller opening, so I could use it with a smaller bead. This one has a pretty wide opening, so I want to make sure that it is buffered on either end with a bead that will not go through it. Sometimes that is a hassle. Sometimes it is not. And I try to put out more beads than I might need, because it's easier to take beads away from a design than it is to try to add more beads at a later date. So if the necklace gets too long, I can just take a couple beads out, or take several beads out. But if it's too short, then sometimes I have to rearrange the whole design. So I'd rather err on the side of too many beads than not enough beads. I think in that way it's kind of like baking. You want to have enough ingredients. And if you have a little bit more than you need, oh, isn't that cute? If you have a little bit more than you need, then you know your recipe is going to turn out well. So I know my necklace will turn out well, even if I don't have oh, I completely lost my thought. Your necklace is going to turn out well because the beads you're choosing are going to go together nicely if you have them set up first. There we go. And yes, I am mixing and matching my silver findings because I think it gives the necklace a nice dynamic to it. These kind of match the shape of the pendant, but as I go around, I can then start to play with different shapes. You know, these have an oblong look, and they themselves are four-sided, so it mirrors that in a little different way. And then we can do some like some little roundish barrel shaped beads here. As we go up and around, this one repeats, but this one does not, and that's fine, but there is some continuity. Oh, you know what? Nope, don't like that. Do not like. Do not like, do not want. And I like using the smaller beads like this up at the top. Because then your attention is really here, and a lot of women, or sorry, a lot of people that wear these kinds of jewelry, the necklaces, their hair hides the back oftentimes, so it's not imperative to have really big beads in the back that draw your attention. I'm just going to rearrange these as I see fit. Okay. Then I need to find something to go here. Oh, maybe I'll use these small ones that mirror that. Yeah, there we go. And yes, it looks like this necklace is going to be extremely long, but if I need to take off this section and this section, I absolutely can after I get everything strung. And because some of these beads are taking up more space on my board than they will take on the wire, it does compact itself a little bit as we go. So that's what we're going to look for. I like to make little end progression of beads that way when you're fastening your necklace, you have a sense of that taper that I'm making right there. So you know where your clasp is going to be every time. So you don't have to look or turn your necklace around. You can feel it. Especially if you have long hair or shoulder length hair, you want to be able to just feel where you're going, because if you pull your necklace around when you have long hair, sometimes you catch your hair in the necklace and it hurts. So if I can make it handier for the people who purchase my work, then I'm going to. Put those over there. And these are the beads that I haven't used. I always pull more than I want. Because what if I don't like the dark beads down here or the medium beads here? I could change these out for the lighter ones. But I think I'm going to leave it like that. Maybe. I do think the dark beads give it a lot more continuity than the lighter beads would. And sometimes I use the lighter beads up top here because it gives more flow to the necklace. So, oh, and the other thing I do at the end is I put beads that have these little crenellations on them, so you can feel it, and if you feel that, you know exactly where your clasp is. Okay, now comes the part where I just follow the pattern. And I will turn my pendant around. So the bail is right here where I need to string the pendant on. So when I get to that point, and I do leave a gap down here too. Leave a gap down there. So when I get to that point, I just know visually that I have to put that pendant on, so I don't forget to do that. With pendants that are held on with a jump ring, that's not such a big deal. But pendants that have the bail built into the wrapping, like you can see that is wrapped in there tight. It's not going anywhere. A jump ring you can just open and put it back on, but on this I have to wire it in. So there's a lot of thought that goes into beading these necklaces. There's several steps of planning. You know, first you have to have the pendant, then you have to have the right beads, then you have to choose the right beads. You have to decide, you know, are you going to wire wrap the pendant? Are you going to put a jump ring on the pendant? Then you have to find the right size of wire for the holes in your beads. So if I was using pearls on this, I know that this wire is actually too thick to go through the holes of a lot of the actual pearls, cultured pearls, real pearls, whatever you want to call them, that I use. So I am not using pearls with this design. therefore I can use a wider wire. All right, what are you doing? Come on, scooch over. There you go. And on these little caps, I have to make sure that I'm putting them on the wire the right way around so that they go on the side of the bead that I want them on, especially if I'm using just one of them. A lot of people use two, one on each side of the bead. But because I already have a silver piece next to this bead here, I wanted to have one little cup instead of two. All right, so now I have one side of this necklace beaded and I have the pendant strung on. I know for some of you that's an awful noise and I'm sorry. And I just go ahead and string the rest of this. Again, here's my bead, and then here's my little end cap cup on it. And I do look and make sure that those are going the right way on the pendant. On the necklace, near the pendant. There we go. That's a better way to say that. And on some of these beads like this one, if the hole is in the right place, I try to make sure that I put the darkest part of the bead closest to the bottom of where the necklace hangs, so that it gets lighter and brighter as your eye goes up with the necklace. I think that's a nice touch. So there's a lot to think about when I make these necklaces. And putting the beads on here is actually the fun part. So on these square beads, or these rectangular beads, I like to put, I don't know if you can see it, but this side here and this side here, this corner kind of cuts off a little bit, and that naturally makes this part of the bead come together visually. So I like to take that smallest part of the bead and put it so it's going to go upwards, so that when you look at the necklace, your eye is automatically going to go up the rest of the necklace. So it's kind of like a little arrow that says, follow me, come look up here. There's other pretty things here. That's another visual trick. So this side of this piece of marble and this side of this piece of marble definitely tell me that the lighter part is up here, so I'm going to face that towards the top. And on another one of these bead minders, I'm going to make sure this is the length I want it. And it's a little longer than I want. So turn this around. Lay that on this is the great part about these bead minders is I can actually pull these beads off. Put these back in my little bowl. And then put my little ending beads on there. Put my bead minder back on, and then I'll do the same on this side. And I don't ever just dump my beads off the end of my wire because some of them are more fragile than others. Some of them tend to bounce off as well, and they go skittering across my studio. So I don't want to chase them. That just takes up more of my time. All right. Check this on me. There we go. That's where I want that to set a little bit more. All right. Now I'm going to take this bead minder off. I'm going to put this crenellated silver bead on the end. And then I'm going to put on 2 of the crimp beads. And again, I'm using 2 simply because the pendant and these larger marble beads are a little heavy. So, and I'm going to put on my clasp and feed the wire through both crimp beads. Oh, come back, little crimp bead. I'm going to use my crimping tool. I'm going to move this first bead back as not necessarily as far as I can, but as far as makes sense for where this jump ring is. And these crimp beads will kind of sploot out a little bit when you crimp them. So, and this, yes, this is a 2-step process. In the tool that I have, there's 2 divots on the bottom side. There's one solid divot on the top, and then there's one divot that has kind of a little scallop in the middle that kind of comes out. And that's what makes this tool crimp the bead around both of these pieces of wire so that it is sturdy and does not come apart at this section. And because the crimp beads do kind of sploot out a little bit, expand out, stretch out, instead of putting this one up directly next to the crimp bead that I just did, I am going to pull it down just a hair. That way the wires aren't put under any stress. There we go. And then I have 2 beautiful little crimped beads right there. If you are using regular pliers instead of a crimping tool, your crimps will not be as strong. You can do it, they'll also be flat, and sometimes that does not look the most professional. But if that's the look you're going for, then absolutely you can use that. Or if you don't have a crimping tool, or the crimping tool is just a little bit out of your price range, then use what you can. But an actual crimping tool will make the crimps sturdier and will not be in jeopardy of coming undone. So now I'm just putting the silver wires at the end over the wire that I had on there. And this is all extra space because we are going to move the necklace around gently so you don't break the pendant or don't break the wire. And see how all the extra wire is now taken up by the beads? That's what we want. So lay this out again because we still have to do the crimp beads on the other side and attach our hook. Take our winder off and we'll put our crenellated bead on there. And our 2 crimp beads. Now this side is a little trickier to do than the first side was, but we're going to do it basically the same way. I noticed I didn't get my O-ring completely lined up. Do that first. Make sure it closes all the way. And this is why I put this bead minder back on before I did this. Because I do have a habit of double checking everything, and if I were to pick up this end would come off. Did not want that to happen. Okay. Make sure that's stacked up there very nice. All right, now I can take this off. And we're going to put this through the jump ring. Now I'm going to thread this back through hopefully as many of these little beads on this side as I did the other side. This little one is making it tough to go through. That's okay. Nope, it's not letting me do that. Okay, so we're going to take those off. Take this little bead off. Put our bead minder back on. I'm going to take this troublesome bead. This is my bead reamer. This is what I put through my finger a couple weeks ago. Just going to make sure there's nothing in here that's going to make the wire stick, because sometimes there's a little burr inside of there. I'm going to get those out because it doesn't allow our wire to double back through. Now, if you have a glass bead at the end like that, sometimes the bead reamer, if you get a little overzealous with it, will explode the glass bead. So just be gentle with them. That's another reason why I like the this little setup here with the different silver findings at the end, is because if I have a glass bead next to my crimp beads, sometimes I get a little heavy-handed, where I get the crimping tool a little too close to the glass bead, and I chip it or explode it, depending on the size. There we go. Almost all the way through. You can do it. You can do it, little bead. There we go. No, not yet. There we are. Okay. So the beads that are a little tight on here are going to make this a little bit harder to pull through. However, it can be done. So here we have this loop, and I have the beads down further from it because I still have to pull this wire through. Sometimes this is a little bit tricky part, and sometimes it's not. Like today, that went really well. So now that we have that there, I like to hold up the pendant and just see if there's a lot of slack on either end, like a lot of wire showing through on either end, and then just give that a little bit more of a tug. Okay. Now I can crimp my crimp beads. Sometimes doing the second side like this really gives me a fight. It doesn't want to do what I want it to do, so I have to finesse it a little bit, but this one came together very nicely. Then we're going to take our wire snips, and we're going to cut as close as we can to the end of the bead, making sure we cut the wire we want, not the wire that's inside the necklace. I have done that before. It's kind of a pain because then you have to rewire the entire pendant. There we are. And all that's left to do now is photograph it. And I made myself this little board. It's a piece of sturdy cardboard that I got off of one of my, I think it was a watercolor pad of paper. Okay, here's my little silver beads, and then I'll put this away. So there it is. There is the pendant done and dusted, and the necklace that goes with it. And now I can just turn this around and photograph it, get it up on my website, and it is ready to find its new home. Okay, I did not mean for this to be a tutorial on how to bead a necklace, but this is how my brain works. So I hope you enjoyed watching. If you've lasted this long with me on this live show, thank you so much. If you want to come back and watch it, or you want to watch it in sections and make a necklace kind of with the video as you go, that would be great. Do what you need to do. So I think that's going to be it for me today. I am going to go let this video finish processing, and I will see you either over on Chaos and Order Art by Susan Holt, or right back here on YouTube. And I will talk to you later. I hope you have an artful weekend and a wonderful rest of your week. I'll see you later. Bye. Now I have to figure out how this goes away. How do I stop this video? See, this is all part of the learning process. Okay. There should be a button. Should there not? Nope, not that. Yes, there we go. All right.